Hey y'all. So, we're talking about connections this time around. So, this one's pretty simple. We don't really have to know anything, about the complex network before we make the complex network to make the complex network. I don't know why I said that so many times. Yeah. So, we have a particle, right? And when it's sending out signals, that would make it an axonal connection. If it's receiving signals, that's a dendritic connection. So we have to allow the particle, or create rules for the particle, to decide whether or not the particle is creating a dendritic or axonal connection. Once the particle has decided, it's more like once the particle has computed the type of axonal or dendritic connection, then it has to decide what type of connection it is. On top of the axonal or dendritic, it has to decide what type of gate it puts in. What type of, just like if it's a resistant connection, if it's an amplified connection. If it's, so that's basically all there is for the types of connection. Different types of gates, different types of resistances, different types of amplification. And that's how we get diversity in the population of particles, of interactants. In a brain, it would be of neurons, or just an organism. It would be of cells. So, where do we go from here? I don't know. So, if we are designing and developing the AI, when we need to decide how to encode the ability for particles to connect to each other in a diverse way, we need to encode two layers of computation into the particle. The first layer of computation would be to decide whether it's axonal or dendritic connection. The second layer of computation that the particle would need to do for its connection to another particle would be to decide whether that axonal or dendritic connection is gated, amplified, or resistant. Depending. It could be all three at once. Well, it can't be all three at once, but it can be a few of those things at once. Okay. So, this will create the diversity in the CNC-EUL, and diversity of the particles. So we don't want it to be too diverse, and we don't want it to not have any diversity at all. We want to be somewhere in the interesting in-between of nothing and everything. Nothing in total diversity. Cool. Okay. So I'm just going to start moving on to the next one. What we're going to talk about next is the organization, and this is going to be a long, not a long video, but it's going to be harder for me to squeeze into 5 minutes. So I'm going to leave this one at 14 minutes. This was about how the particles connect to other particles and how they do computations, how they make decisions on how to connect to each other. See y'all.